time. Hi guys, welcome back to the Desert Spring. Sorry, wow, it's been an incredibly crazy past couple of days. So, yesterday kind of ruined my day today. I've been wanting to put out a video for a little bit, and then I recorded a video on Sunday and then lost the file. You know how that goes. So, yesterday I was working and I drive all over the place for work. I like it. I enjoy moving around. I don't like being stuck in one building. And so, my car ends up breaking down. Long story short, car ends up breaking down when I'm about 3 hours away from home. And so I run into a auto parts store, Little O'Reilly. Check engine light came on and is flashing. Which typically, if the check engine light is flashing, it's because there's a problem that's imminent and damaging to the engine. And so I ran into the O'Reillys because I didn't have my scan tool with me. And they told me that it was a knock sensor, a code for a knock sensor, and that I needed to either replace the sensor or replace the engine. And I'm like, way to jump to conclusions there, buddy. And they were like, we have a knock sensor in stock if you just want to buy it and try that. I'm like, no, dude, I don't just throw parts. Like, we need a proper diagnostic here. So I call a mechanic shop there in the little tiny town that I'm in. And, I'm expecting to be able to have a parlay with a mechanic where we sit here and go back and forth and talk about what the potential issue could be, because I don't have a scan tool with me. I'm only running off of the information that I have, my previous experiences with the vehicle, etc. And I'm chatting with the mechanic, and the mechanic's just like, yeah, man, I don't know. If it's not a knock sensor, I would just say it needs an engine. I'm like, okay, we're just as useless here. So I ran over. They did happen to have a Harbor Freight in that tiny town. It's like 3,000 people, something like that. I ran over there and I purchased one of their expensive scan tools that they have for vehicles. Connected it to my vehicle, did a bunch of tests there in the parking lot to try to diagnose what the issue was. Arrived at one of three conclusions, did an oil change, and went straight back home and just kind of canceled the rest of my day. And I limped all the way home at like 30 miles an hour. So my 3 hour drive away from home at 80 miles per hour turned into like a 5.5 to 6 hour drive home at 35 to 40 miles per hour. So it really sucked. But what it ended up being was a bunch of misfires throughout the engine. I connected and opened up the fuel system, which this has nothing. This is just me talking crap, just letting y'all fill in with my crazy day. Looked at my fuel pressures and noticed that every single time I would rev my engine up to 4,000 or 5,000 RPM, the fuel pressure would just die on me. So it'd get to about 700 psi from my high pressure injection pump, and then it would just tank, and the car would start stuttering. It'd start spitting out white smoke from the back. And check engine light would pop on for a knock and all this kind of crap. So long story short, it's a high pressure fuel pump, which sucks. Because, my birthday's coming up in a couple of weeks, and I was thinking to myself, because I'm about to turn 30, I'm cresting the hill, and I thought to myself, I'm going to go, 30s, I'm going out with a bang. I'm going to go to Europe for like a month, just the whole month of July, and just spend the month there. And that didn't pan out, and so then I was like, okay, well, if I can't do that, I'm going to, which I'm only like a week away from my birthday or something like that. Okay, maybe a week and a half away from my birthday, whatever it is. But, so I decided, I was like, you know what? If I can't do that, I'm going to go do my crazy shit. I'm either going to fly to Alaska and go do some more fun stuff, just kind of out in the wilderness, or I'm going to go out camping at Skinwalker Ranch, which that sounds like a lot of fun. And then my car died, and I looked up the price of the part, and the OEM part is like $1,800, $1,500, something like that. So my plans have been devastated. There went my grandiose 30th birthday. Now it's just going to be me and a bottle of wine, which, I mean, that's not a problem. I love wine. Today, we're looking at this video. Click, click. Oh, why do you do this? Click. Come on. Wake up. Sorry, guys. My keyboard died on me. Are you serious right now? Okay. You guys know that I don't cut or anything like that. There it goes. Now it's working on me. Okay. Why is it doing this, though? There it goes. Okay. Sorry, I do not like to sit down and edit. I just don't have the time for editing. I really don't have the time, which, you know, you can tell by the video quality. But so I made this little nifty app where I can like switch my camera angles, and I can also share a screen. I kind of tweaked it to where I can also share kind of like a window. So I plan on doing some pretty fun stuff with that in the future. Today, I was wrong. I was an evangelical pastor who hated gay people. I can relate, unfortunately. Hate tends to get programmed into people pretty early. It's from Andy Neal. You can go check him out on his channel. Let's get into this.
Hi, I'm Andy Neal. I used to be a closed-minded, bigoted, homophobic person who was very judgmental of people. I was an evangelical Christian pastor for 15 years. I voted Republican. You know, a very kind of stereotypical angry white dude thing.
Stereotypical angry white dude thing. What is with Christians and voting Republican? I'm curious. Let me know about that, because I grew up and I was taught in church that Christians didn't vote Democrat, which is kind of a crazy, you know. You guys have to remember, we're in Texas. This is Texas, right? And then on top of that, a lot of my buddies were like Louisiana, all that kind of stuff. And so you're talking about the Bible Belt. You're talking about the South, right? So it's already a pretty red place to begin with. But then you add the conservative Christianity, and it tends to make things dark red. So
A long time. And I get asked on the daily, especially over my Facebook page, Andy, what was it that made you change your opinions on people and those things? And there's a lot of things that happened. My experience with the church, my experience with others. But ultimately what it came down to is that people who I was taught from a very young age were to be feared, to be avoided, to be demonized, were very, very kind. And they...
Oh, my bad. I forgot to do the whole thing. Like and subscribe. And also, if you'd like to be a part of if you'd like to come on and share your experience, here it is, right there. Can you see it? Nope, it's not showing anything. Dang it. Hold on. Let me press this button, press that button. There it is. Hi. You can reach out to me, desertspring111@gmail.com, if you want to share your experience, or if you'd like to come on and have an interview with me and we could talk about your experience there in Christianity and deconstructing and walking away from Christianity, no matter what route you choose. I don't judge whether you take an occult route, whether you take an atheistic route, whatever route you choose, universalist route, doesn't matter. I'd love to have a conversation about how your experiences inside of Christianity were and walking away from Christianity in general. So, and what your kind of current beliefs are now. I'm always curious about that kind of stuff. So there's my little banner there, and let's get back to this. Sorry about that.
They showed me kindness. So a little background, I grew up as the son of two disillusioned Baptist preacher kids. Grew up in a Christian school, went to church after my parents...
Disillusioned is accurate.
...parents separated. Very much in the church, accepted Jesus Christ as my personal Lord and Savior, got baptized, all that stuff. Was very conservative, very, went to meetings of the Young Republicans in my high school my senior year, voted for George Bush both times, was super...
I think that's probably one of the more damaging parts of Christianity, is that they really just get into your politics, you know? I mean, what happened to the separation between church and state, or the separation between beliefs and state, right? Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you kind of vote however you want to vote, I guess. But it's one of those things where it's like, whenever I grew up, it was just, I can't tell you how many times, we would have a person who'd start coming to our church, and we found out that they were Democrat, and there was just give them time. And so maybe somebody would walk up to them and they'd share a couple of verses from the Bible with them, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, I'm bleeding red, kind of thing. I mean, obviously we all bleed red, but it's just the whole conservative thing is running through my veins. All of a sudden I'm against, women's rights in certain aspects, and I'm against gay rights and LGBTQ community and all this kind of stuff. And I want the restrictions that I place on my life, I want to place those restrictions on absolutely everybody inside this country and, quite frankly, on the world. It's pretty crazy when you're out of it. When you're in it, you're just like, you're in it, dog. You know, you're in it. You're just like, this is right. No, you're wrong. I'm right, because it says in the Bible that you are wrong and I'm right. You know, and it's just like, you can't break past that. And so you kind of have to wait for people to kind of experience it for themselves when they eventually get to the point to where they're like, oh, you know what? A lot of this stuff doesn't make sense. A lot of these ideas surrounding God doesn't make sense. This idea that, you know, that God is this ultra petty, super, you know, in mood swings, bipolar kind of character does not, you know, I mean, those are very human emotions, first of all. And then second of all, those are also some of the worst human emotions of like swinging from one extreme to swinging to the other extreme. To be frank, I don't think in the Bible, you know, you can argue the New Testament, argue that Jesus is God. I don't believe that. But in the Old Testament, I don't think you could ever swing that God was ever this ultra loving, caring, nurturing person. I think he's always just been kind of a freaky dude, like a bit of a psychopath, where it's just like, I created you, now worship me, and then if you don't, I'm gonna fucking kill your family. Like, god damn. So I don't think that it's hard for humans to be better than the God of the Old Testament, and I think that if you argue that that's not the case, you know, you're just running in circles because facts are not on your side.
Super just all about conservatism, evangelical Christianity, spreading the gospel, that sort of thing. Now, the Christianity thing isn't bad in and of itself. My expression, or the strand I was very judgmental, very tied to conservatism, very tied to politics, very homophobic, slightly racist, very xenophobic, very chauvinistic.
Let's talk about the slightly racist thing. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to do with like actual races. It has more to do of like Middle East people. They're Muslim, right? And so growing up, I was taught that, you know, they were a problem. They needed to get deported ASAP. They were not allowed to ever come into this country. And with Hispanics, this was the absolute tear that I had in childhood growing up, which is kind of what forged my individuality. You know, my dad's white and extremely conservative and involved with politics. My mom is Hispanic, and half of our family was illegal, and they were all migrants, and they weren't illegal in the sense that they weren't contributing. What's that? They weren't illegal in the sense that they weren't contributing. You know, all of my uncles, they had their companies, they paid their road tax, they paid for their stickers and license plates, they paid their property taxes, they paid their school taxes, they paid their income taxes, they paid their state sales taxes, they paid the comptroller. You know, everybody was operating perfectly legally. It is just that their status was that they had entered illegally, right? And so, you know, it was always kind of this weird thing where it's like, on the one hand, I worked with my dad almost 100% of the time growing up, and so I ended up becoming incredibly racist towards Hispanics, which is funny. Look at me. I mean, I swear there's a Key and Peele episode about that whole irony. But I became racist towards Hispanics and all that kind of stuff. And I moved to South Texas, where I found a lot of Hispanics that were racist towards Hispanics. I'm like, okay, this doesn't make any sense at all. At a certain point, I was just like, this really, you know, my ex-wife's family, they're majority Mexican, and there were some of the most racist people against Hispanics that were crossing illegally from Mexico. I'm like, and what are you? Like, but we're not going to get into that. But yeah, as far as like the racism and stuff like that goes, you know, it's mainly aimed towards people of different religions. And it's, you know, that's kind of the funnel, at least in my experience. I can't talk for him, for Andy here. I can't speak for Andy as far as what he meant for that, but for me, I know it was more of a kind of a conservative thing, and it was also kind of a incoming call from 936. They're gonna have to wait. I've got work today. I've got a bunch of people waiting on me. So yeah. But I just wanted to explain that a little bit, just in case you've never been involved with Christianity or you've never been a conservative Christian in the Deep South. That is typically the kind of things that Deep South conservative Christians say. The Muslims are going to come over, they're going to completely take over our country, and then they're going to hang us all up by our noose, by our necks. Or the Antichrist is going to come, and the president is going to be the Antichrist, and he's going to make the government, take control of everything, and then we're all going to be beheaded for being Christian. All sorts of really crazy, fucked up mental tactics, and then, and then they go and they complain about, kind of like the occult community or the New Age community. I'm like, you guys, you need to look at yourselves before y'all start judging other people. I have a lot of friends that are that they're, whether they're, I don't know what the word is. There's Wiccan, and then there's, I have one that's Wiccan. I have one that's a Druid, all this kind of stuff. I think it's fun. I think it's a lot of fun. I enjoy the witchy parts of things, but at the end of the day, when it comes down to the actual reality of life, you still got to get stuff paid for, and you still have to get stuff done, right? So, but yeah. It's pretty funny. I look back at some of my beliefs of being a conservative Christian, and I'm just like, wow, was I off the deep end? And I look at my family, and they're still there. I'll chat with my sister sometimes, and she's relatively a missionary, and she'll just be telling me about somebody in her church, and then she'll say, but it turns out that the husband was gay, and I was like, cool, good for him. It sounds like he's being expressive of who he actually is. So good for him, I mean, it hurts, I'm sure, if you're his wife, right? Because then maybe there's a touch of heartbreak because now you're going through a breakup. But if that's even necessary, you don't have to go through a breakup just because you found out, love is love. Love is incredibly complicated. It's not, it's not just, you and I are going to be starting a family together and we're going to be having sex, thus you're the only person that I can love. Or whatever, I mean, anybody who's had multiple relationships in their lives knows that, you can have these situations where you decide to break it off with a person and you still genuinely love that person, but you just know that you two just don't work together, right? Like in the case with me with my ex-wife. I think she's a beautiful person. I think that she's just got such a happy, at least when we first met, I think she has just such a happy kind of cheery vibe about her. And there's so much about her that I appreciate. I wouldn't step back into a house with her again, though. I wouldn't, I'm not signing up for round two, but yeah.
Coming in. By age 19, I became a youth pastor. That went back quickly and often, but that's when I started ministry. Went to Bible college, all that fun stuff. However, in my 15 years of working as a pastor, I also, because, churches and a lot of people don't believe in healthcare, I worked at Starbucks because I needed benefits, and Starbucks was really good at the time about making sure that if you worked at least 20 hours a week on average, you were getting health benefits, really good health benefits too. And so I was working at Starbucks part-time while being a pastor, and I was constantly rubbing shoulders with people who weren't like me, people from other races and backgrounds, women, queer folk, LGBTQ community, constantly running with them, hanging out with them because I was at work with them. Most people knew what I did. They knew I was an evangelical, Southern Baptist, time Christian pastor. They knew what I believed. I was always kind of a little bit separated from them. They'd go out and do things at night. This is in Las Vegas especially. I wouldn't because I thought I was better than them. And honestly, because I was also working at church, I really couldn't for reasons we can get into later. However, something happened one day. I was working at Starbucks and I was closing with a guy, I'm going to call him Jay. and it was raining in Las Vegas. It was pouring rain, which doesn't happen very much. And he was a shift supervisor. Jay was a gay black man. I was a straight evangelical white dude. And
have I reacted to this video before? This is sounding like, I wonder if he's re-recorded a new video, because this story sounds very familiar. If I've reacted to this video, guys, already, let me know. Oh my god. Oh, it would be that kind of day for me. Whatever, let's get through it.
He took the bus everywhere in town. He took the bus. It was pouring rain. I had my car. I had just gotten a car for the first time not too long before that. And I was like, dude, I'll take you home. He lived in a completely other end of town from me, the part of town where if you're white, you usually didn't hang out. And I was like, I'll take you home, no big deal, because I knew the bus, because I used to take the bus. I had just gotten the car. The bus routes he had to take, he had to be sitting in the rain for a while because of transfers. Like, it was gonna be a good hour and a half for him to get home, whereas I could get him home in 20 minutes. So I was like, dude, I'll get you home. So I drive him home, and we get to his apartment complex. We park, and before he gets out, he says, Andy, you and I are a lot alike. And I'm like, what? What do you mean you and I are a lot alike? That's weird. Like, you are a black gay dude. I am a straight evangelical Christian.
Don't do, if you want to trigger a conservative Christian, just tell him that he's a little gay. Just tell him that he's got some gay tendencies. That is the fastest way to trigger them. Because they want to think that they're separate from you. They want to think that they're special, that they're God's holy chosen people, all this kind of stuff. They want to feel that superiority, like they're right, like they've got it. They're the ones who are going to get saved. They're the ones who are not going to get left behind. They're the ones, and everybody else is just kind of woo-woo suckers on the planet. And so they like that. They like that feeling. And so whenever you just kind of, touch their ego a little bit, they tend to, you get some fun reactions out of people. I love my sister. I love her to death. I love poking her. She's my older sister. I'm her younger brother. It's my job. I'm pretty sure somewhere I have a signed work agreement that I was going to bother her to the most extreme of levels for the rest of my life. I'm pretty sure I have a signed agreement somewhere there with her. Joking.
Pastor, white dude, like, no, we couldn't be more different. And then he proceeds to tell me the story of how he grew up in the church and how he grew up wanting to serve God and be a pastor. And he was even interning for his pastor, except he struggled with what we called at the time as an evangelical same-sex attraction. He was gay. He was struggling with that. He knew his church wouldn't accept it. He was, as he said, these were his words.
Let's talk about this. It's not a struggle. Being yourself is not a struggle, okay? Whatever it is, okay? I was a child that experienced a lot of things. People can call it whatever it is that they want to call it, but I also have experiences with other people that I know that it's like, no, you can't deny that this is, that there's strange phenomenon that happen around me. As far as like spiritual things, right? And not necessarily spiritual. I mean, sure, since I've kind of expanded my mind to be okay with the idea that there's other, beings out in the universe and that there's other civilizations, then, I kind of collapse back into the 3D reality of maybe there is just some sort of, civilization out there that has tech that is just so insanely advanced that we don't understand it here on Earth. In which case, I'd be cool with that explanation too. But it's, just be you. It's okay to be you. Look, if the whole of consciousness, if the whole of God was perfect, then how could he create stuff that isn't perfect, right? This is where the Christian narrative falls apart, because the Christian narrative says that God is perfect and everything that he does is perfect. No, it's not. Because if God was perfect and everything he did was perfect, Satan wouldn't exist, right? We'd still be in the Garden of Eden. He would have had foresight to say, I'm going to create these people and they're about to fuck everything up. So let's not create these people, right? It's pretty simple to take that logic of God is perfect and everything that he does is perfect. No. So if we do assume that God is perfect, then you're perfectly made and there's nothing wrong with you. And if God is imperfect, I mean, then yeah, then that makes sense. Look at the fucking world. No, I'm just kidding. But no, what I really think that it is, I think that it's just that, we are these beautiful creatures, these beautiful things that live this beautiful experience on this gorgeous planet. Unless you live in Houston, Texas. Not a lot that's pretty about Houston, Texas. That's where I'm currently living, roughly currently living. I live about an hour north because I can't stand being inside the city. And, yeah, I mean, you just, you can look around and see nature everywhere and see beauty. Once again, unless you live inside the city, then good luck. Buy yourself some succulents, headass. But no, I mean, there's beauty everywhere. And at some point we decided that's wrong. No, that's wrong. I don't like that. That's wrong. That's going to be wrong. Oh, that'll definitely get you sent to hell. And people started hopping on the bandwagon and they were like, oh, you know what? Let's write some books. And then you have to remember, at one point, the Bible was a brand new book. And somebody was like, oh, we like that information. We're going to keep that. That one says that we hate people, and we do. So let's keep that. That one says that we're special and everybody else sucks and is going to burn in hell. We kind of like feeling like that. That makes us feel kind of special and different. Let's go ahead and keep that. And you've just got generation after generation after generation after generation of people just choosing to look at the differences in people and judge each other based off of our differences. And 2,000 years later, we're pointing back at that same book and saying that book is so old, thus it's correct. And it's just like, oh my fucking God. Like, it's a little cray-cray out here, I ain't gonna lie.
He was trying to pray the gay away. He couldn't pray the gay away, so he went to his pastor who he was like an intern or being mentored by.
My sister is gay, and my mom had a bunch of women from the church come and try to pray the gay out of my sister, and they were unrelenting. They did not let up on this girl. And my sister, I was just kind of like sitting there watching the entire thing. My sister's just kind of sitting there just like, I'm just thinking at a certain point, I'm like, she's just going to have to act like it because they're not going to stop. Like, they're going to continue to like throw oil at her, get her hair all oily and messy and grimy and gross. And they're going to continue to freaking prey on her until she just like starts convulsing or some shit. And then they'll be, give it 20 seconds after that and then they'll quit. Like, give them their little high, It's like, oh my God.
And he said, hey, I'm struggling with this.
I love this guy. He's so sweet.
Go away. And instead of showing him love, kindness, or empathy, they said, you're out of here. Basically, he literally told me, they called me an abomination. My family kicked me out of our home. Church kicked me out, and I was on my own. And what struck me is what he said is like, all I wanted to do was serve God. And
I can't tell you how many times that's the case for people in the church, especially if you're gay. Look, if you are gay and you are struggling with the idea that you're gay, I'm telling you right now, it's not a struggle. You're not struggling with the way that you feel. You're struggling with the way that everybody else is making you feel. That's where your struggle is. If you're gay, and that's fine. That's okay. You're struggling with the fact that everybody else is telling you that this imaginary creator in the sky specifically hates that you are gay. Out of all the things, you're gay, and that's a problem. And you've taken that on to be true, which is why it hurts you so much. It's not true. It's just not true. If you want to look outside of the Bible itself is such a cursed book. Oh my God. If you want to look outside of the Bible, there's a bunch of texts that surround the Bible that were excluded from the Bible because they don't jive with what the Christians were trying to teach at the time. They don't jive with the idea that, there's a separate, it doesn't jive with the idea that, God wants to send you to hell and that you're an awful sinner and that you're unworthy and that you're trash. It doesn't jive with that idea. And so it didn't get included in the Bible. But there's plenty of books that are historical, that are accurate, that are written from the apostles, like the Gospel of Thomas is one, because I keep referring to that one all the time, because that's the one that Christians tend to not be able to discount. All the other books and stuff like that, they have their ways of kind of weaseling out of it. But whenever it comes to the Book of Thomas, it's widely accepted that it doesn't align with the canon. That's it. It doesn't align with what they're teaching. It doesn't align with the program that they're trying to run, that they're trying to put out there, and so they reject it. But that's basically all that they have on it, right? Which is the reason why I bring it up so much. So look into that, right? If you're a person who's struggling with the idea that you're Christian and that you're gay, look into that. Because then you'll soon find out that you're not the one who's struggling. They're struggling with accepting the idea that God still loves you when you're gay. That's not your struggle. That's their struggle, right? So keep that in mind. And if you're gay, I love you. I hate this idea that like my sister, she went through absolute hell. My mom sitting there making jokes of her, calling her Satan, telling her that she's possessed by the devil. You don't fucking do that to your child. I'm sorry. You don't fucking do that to your child. I don't give a shit what you believe. You don't convince a child that there's something wrong with them, that there's something deeply ingrained with them, and that they're possessed by some sort of being. They will have their own fate. But it is so immensely wrong. And I can't stand seeing it. I really can't stand seeing it. But nonetheless, I'm running out of time. I need to get on the road. Let's finish this up.
Gay had always shown me kindness. And rubbing shoulders with people, especially in the LGBTQ plus community, they were always showing me kindness. And I fed them some line about, not all Christians, not all pastors, even though I knew that was true in my church at the time. And from then on, my attitude
to be frank, probably about him too. Whenever I was Christian and I had interactions with people who I would be considered to be living in sin, whether they were alcoholics, whether they were drug addicts, whether they were just standard people who occasionally like going to the club and partying on the weekends, whatever. They didn't have to be addicts. They could just be a casual person who had a beer with dinner, and I would classify that as worthy of burning in hell. When you're interacting with those people as a Christian, you don't want to be in their face. You don't want to have, you don't want to start an argument. You don't want to be, what's the word that I'm trying to think of? Combative. But you are thinking that in your mind. And so you'll tell them to their face, oh no, it's nothing serious. It's whatever. But if you actually press them and ask them, they'd be like, no, you're going to burn in hell unless you change your ways. Right. It's just how they are.
The LGBTQ plus community. And as I became a youth pastor and was serving more churches, I'd have queer kids come into my youth group. And I would allow them to come, even though the elders and deacons in my church would get real pissed off about it. I even had one time where I had a girl coming, and I was telling my pastors, like, yeah, this girl, she's openly gay, but she's coming to youth group, and she feels comfortable with us. She has a crappy home life, but she's here because, there's positive adults. And we were getting ready to go on a retreat as a youth group, and the pastor at the church where I was a youth pastor says, she's not going on the retreat, right, because she can't. And I'm like, why not? Well, it's because she's gay, and she's in sleeping quarters with other girls. You never know what might happen. I'm like, dude. But yet, those teenagers, Jay, so many working at Starbucks with me, kept showing me kindness. And eventually, my perception of what I was taught about queer folk, people in the LGBTQ plus community, was proven to be wrong, which caused me to question everything else. So, what made me change? It was a kindness of queer folk, a kindness of gay people.
The way he said that is so crazy. That's so crazy. The kindness of queer folk. like the gnomes or the fairies. Like, what? Oh, I'm sorry. It's just the way that he said that was so funny. The kindness of queer folk. That's so funny.
Those in the LGBTQ community, kindness of those who weren't like me, I didn't deserve their kindness because they knew what I believed about them. I didn't deserve their kindness, but they showed it to me. And all that to say, I try my best not to demonize other people now who aren't like me, because I want them to see that we're more alike than we're different, and there's a better way to live. And I'm not saying they need to leave Christianity or not believe in God, but just they need to love all people for who they are. Doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, who you love, how you identify. We all are worthy of dignity, love, and respect. And that's what I want to convey. That's what I want to show other people. And that's how I changed. So that's my story. Thanks for listening.
Yay! I love him so much. Yeah, so, I mean, that's just kind of the whole thing, right? I mean, camera's going crazy again. Jesus. There it is. That's kind of the whole thing, you know. It's, you can focus on, I'm not doing anything and my camera's just jumping around. Like, what the heck? Can you not? There it is. Okay, maybe it's stabilized. Who knows? Oh my God. The point is, okay, give me a second, guys. This camera's going to drive me up a wall. Where this button? Stop. Okay, I think we're finally done with the whole jumping around crap. TD. Hello. That's the thing, you know. You can focus on what separates people. You can focus on the fact that you're a part of the LGBTQ community and they are not. You're a part of the Christian community and they are not. You're a part of the whatever community and they are not. And they're a problem because they are not a part of my community. All you're going to end up with is a world where everybody's pointing fingers at each other and lobbing bombs at each other, right? That's how we got where we're at right now, especially in the United States with the stupidity that we've got going on in all the crazy crap. With that being said, you know, his little statement of, you know, love kind of cuts through everything. It really does, right? And that's why I say, you know, one of the things that I bring up this book all the time. So for anybody who doesn't really know anything about my journey, I get a lot of dreams. And in my dreams, I tend to get books that pop up in my dreams. And typically these books can be kind of hard to find. There was a book that came to me in a dream, and the beings in the dream just told me the author's name. That's it. And they said, go find this author's book. And it took me a while because I couldn't figure out how to spell the guy's name because it was a really, really weird name. But I was successful in finding his book. That's not this book. This book is a different book. It's called A Course in Miracles. And Christians hate this book. Most Christians hate this book. The reason is because it is written by a girl who's a Presbyterian. Now let's look at Paul for a second. This is the only reason why I give this book I take this book any sort of serious, right? If you look at Paul is supposedly having these conversations with Jesus, which is why he's writing all of these crazy things in the New Testament. And supposedly Paul is, you know, this perfectly divine, you know, guy who has zero hate about him, which very is untrue, right? You can see the way that he treats women in 1 Timothy. But, you know, when we look at Christianity, we just take that Paul was getting some sort of special information from God, and that he is right and perfectly right on every single word that he spoke and wrote down, right? So this book is written by Helen DeGeneres. No, I'm just kidding. Who's it written by? I forget this lady's name. She's got a really basic name, but one that I keep forgetting. Helen Schuchman. Helen Schuchman. Probably mispronouncing that. As well as Avery's name. Sorry about mispronouncing your last name, Avery, if you're seeing this. I'm trying. And that book was written by a girl who was an atheist. She was working in a psych hospital and went to medical school, all that kind of stuff. Was atheist for quite a while. Grew up Presbyterian, but then became atheist. And while she was working in the hospital, she had this voice that was coming to her in her head. And anyways, eventually, with enough fighting this voice, she decides, oh, what the hell, I'm just going to start writing and see what happens. Maybe nothing happens, maybe something happens. What comes out of her is this. It's A Course in Miracles, and it's supposedly channeled by Jesus, right? So you could argue Paul was experiencing the same thing because he kept saying that Jesus was coming to him and telling everybody that they should hate women. Okay, not actually hate women, but basically, I mean, let's look at Paul. I mean, it is pretty obvious. And so the thing with this book is that it also turns Christianity upside down, and it puts love at the forefront, and it puts connectedness and connection with everybody at the forefront. It puts the beauty of life, the beauty of experience at the forefront, and kind of teaches a lot of things of just life. That there's a lot of really deep life lessons in that book, and I really like it because if you're doing life correctly, you're growing as a person, right? If you're doing it right, there's no right way to do life, first of all, but if you're on the path of wanting to grow, then growing is fun because growing's for everyone. So when you're kind of going down that path, you look at yourself. That's the main thing, is that you look at yourself and you sit with yourself. You sit with your thoughts. You sit with your beliefs. You sit with what I like to call your programming, your initial programming, right? I was conservative Christian, and I was programmed to believe that the Bible was perfectly right and that there was nothing outside of the Bible that was perfectly right, and that whenever I had an experience that was outside what can be explained by my religious system, it must have been demonic, it must have been something, and so I had to be attacked, and so all this kind of BS, right? That didn't exist. But you sit and you look at your thoughts. You look at, oh, I hate these people. Okay, well, let's sit with that. Why do you hate those people? I hate this, this idea. Well, let's sit with that. Why do you hate this idea, right? Like with Christianity, with the whole thing about being gay. Oh, we hate gay. Okay, do you as a person actually care? Well, no, I'm actually rather indifferent. I really don't care. But I'm supposed to be a follower of Jesus, and Jesus says that, which Jesus never said any of that shit. But I'm supposed to be a follower of Jesus, and in the Old Testament it says that gay people are an abomination to God, and so in order for me to stay and in order for me to go to heaven, I have to believe that gay people are going to hell. And it's like, okay, so you can sit with that belief, you can sit there, but do you yourself have a problem with another person outside of your religion? Do you actually have a problem with that? Most of the time, the answer is no. Because to be frank, in general, we have to be taught to hate people. Whenever I was 3 and 4 years old, I was enjoying my life playing with everybody, loving everybody. And then I was taught that I shouldn't like Democrats. Then I was taught that I shouldn't like people who aren't Baptist, right? Everybody else is going to hell. Then I was taught that, taught this, taught that, taught this, taught that. I had to be taught how to hate people. I had to be taught how to judge people. I had to be taught how to point people out in front of everybody and make that person look stupid so that I can feel better about myself, right? I had to be taught all of these crazy fucking ideas that we have to exist with on this world. And at the end of the day, if you just, bridge with a person a little bit and just accept them for who they are and see the beauty in who they are, even if they're Christian, even if they're Muslim, even if they're Buddhist, even if they're, whatever, it does not matter. If you just throw away the labels and accept that we're all just beautiful human beings that are living this pretty interesting experience where cars occasionally break down while you're in Jasper, Texas, a tiny ass little town of 3,000 people. And then you have to consider hitchhiking home. I really was about to hitchhike my happy little ass right down the highway, 95 miles back to the house. What was it? It was like 95 or 110 or something like that. I don't know how many miles it is, but it's pretty far. It's a long drive. But, and I've pulled shit like that before. I think the longest hike I've ever done personally may only have been like 40 something miles. I don't know. But I looked at the mileage and I was like, oh, there's no way I'm walking home. That's going to take me 2.5 days to walk home. So, which I would have done it, but, you know, I had to be here today because I have jobs to do today. So with that being said, I do have jobs to do today. So I have to get back to work. So let me know what you guys think about this video. There. It's my little banner. DesertSpring111gmail.com. If you want to come on and share your experience, don't forget to like and subscribe. And ladies and gentlemen, I have to leave. So thank you for hanging out with me for today, and we will see you in the next video.